So our next speaker is Chris Obepta, as a Ph.D. and professional engineer. He's an extension specialist in water resources with Rutgers Cooperative Extension, my alma mater, and he's a professor with the Department of Environmental Sciences at the School of Environmental and Biological Sciences. Dr. Obepta has a background in watershed management, in water quality modeling, and as well in stormwater management. Don't. I talk louder, I guess, than other folks. So Elliot did this really cool thing where he turned back up the gain or volume, and then I didn't turn over the mic, so I'm going to adjust. There are note cards. If you have a question, please fill them out, and there are folks coming around collecting them, so make sure you pass them in so we can make sure you get to all your questions. And with that, Dr. Obepta.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is everybody still awake? I know the biology stuff really gets to me. I'm a civil engineer, by the way. I have an aquatic biologist who works for me. She told me I'm not allowed to speak about biology at all tonight. I thought it was zooplankton, but apparently it's zooplankton, so I'm not even sure I know how to say the words. I'm supposed to thank all these people for dragging me up here tonight. I appreciate it. I like the cash bar. I was told it was an open bar, but I guess it's okay. I'm with the Cooperative Extension Service. I'm part of the comic relief for tonight. The Extension Service you may know of, we've been around for about 100 years. We've been working with farmers mostly to try to help them address their problems. The idea with the Rutgers Cooperative Extension Service is we extend the knowledge of university out to the state so people can solve their problems. So I came to Rutgers about 16 years ago. I used to work with Jim Cosgrove at a company called Omni Environmental. I was able to get out of there and escape, and I got to the university. Our mission is to identify and address community water resources issues using sustainable and practical science-based solutions. Like all mission statements at Rutgers, it has a lot of buzzwords in it, and that's required by Rutgers. So my job actually is to run around the state and help people solve their water problems. I have a staff of 8 full-time people. I do have an aquatic biologist who works for me, but I make her do proofreading instead because she's a really good writer. We try not to let her go out into lakes, because she likes that too much. Lots of engineers who work for me, lots of students who work for me. I work very closely with the county extension offices. So there's an office in every county. A few years ago, we started hiring environmental county agents. So these first 5 are environmental county agents. We used to have one in Morrison, Somerset, but she retired and we're hoping to replace her. And we're hoping to get one eventually in Sussex and Warren County. So the idea is that you can actually go to your county office and have that person there also help you address some of your problems. That's what we're trying to do. Okay, so managing stormwater. Steve talked a lot about the issue, all tied to stormwater, a lot of it's tied back to stormwater. When we think about stormwater management, we think about 2 things. We think about water quality, when we think about flood control. So water quality is mostly, we're putting in stormwater practices to reduce pollution. I'm gonna keep probably walking a little bit because I got my Fitbit on, so camera guy. So I gotta get my steps in or I can't go home. Usually we focus on smaller storms. It's like 1.25 inches of rain over 2 hours, which New Jersey calls their water quality storms. That's usually what we design these systems for. There's 2 types of stormwater management we're frequently using. One are these manufactured treatment devices, and the other one's green infrastructure. Then we have stormwater management for flood control. Okay, so this is the idea is to hold the water, let out slowly so people don't flood and wash away. So this gives you a lot of your detention basins. And there's also some green infrastructure practices that work that way too. So water quality, this is what we're dealing with. The algae, the blue-green algae, the pipes flowing into the stream or into the lake, these catch basins that are filled with gunk. And then, you have the lawn that's spilled right to the water's edge, the erosion that goes along with that, and all the phosphorus that washes in. So they have these really cool manufactured treatment devices. Every time we have a problem in this country, we try to invent something new and creative. So these devices are basically concrete boxes. This is a hydrodynamic separator, also known as the swirly device. The idea the water comes in, it swirls around, and all the pollution settles out. It's magic. It works. It's beautiful. Actually, it only removes about 50% of the sediment, the total suspended solids, and it only removes about 20 to 25% of the phosphorus. Okay, so Steve was talking a lot about phosphorus removal. So this probably not going to do a lot. Now we have these other devices, these filter devices, which is a lot like your Brita filter you'd have on your faucet. And the idea is the water comes in and gets filtered. These will remove about 50% of the phosphorus based on the literature that I've seen. Now these filters have to be replaced, they have to be cleaned, there's a lot of maintenance associated with it, and both of these are very expensive. Okay, so that becomes part of the issue. So the other thing we use is green infrastructure. So green infrastructure is a cool name for stormwater management. So what we wind up doing is we design stormwater systems to treat stormwater at the source. Right? So many of you have seen these developments across the nation. So I'm going to start moving now so you can follow me. So many of you have seen these detention basins, right? You have big developments, detention basins at the bottom of the hill, and that you're not supposed to manage the stormwater. So green infrastructure is something different. The idea is that we put that right at the source, and we have much smaller systems scattered throughout the development. So they capture, they filter, and then they absorb, and sometimes we get to reuse the stormwater. So this is something we're trying to do. So lots of different green infrastructure practices. The rain gardens are also known as bioretention systems, bioswales, downspout planters. We even have in here green roofs, which is the sexiest of all green infrastructure practices. If you ever see the presentation on Philadelphia, they have a planner who clicks a button, he shows all the roofs of Philadelphia, and he clicks another button, he'll turn to green roofs, and everybody goes, ooh, ah. Except for the engineers in the room who say, well, a green roof weighs 15 to 35 pounds per square foot, and if you put a green roof on this building, it's a good chance it's going to snow, and the green roof's going to be in your lap. So you have to be very careful about things like that. So we have to be very careful on which of these choose. Now, some of these actually don't just manage water quality, they also manage water quantity, right? So we can design a rain garden or bioretention system to manage the 100-year storm that we get every 1 or 2 years. We can manage the stuff under permeable pavement, we can hold the water, and we can naturalize detention basins, which Steve's company's been doing a lot of before he left. I'm sure they'll do a much better job now that he's gone. You know, so the idea is you naturalize the basin and it filters out more of the water, you know. So these are things that we do. So these are your typical stormwater detention basins. These do absolutely nothing for water quality, right? The idea is the water comes in, slows down, sediment settles out. Next storm comes in and washes that sediment out. There's very little infiltration because we built this with big tractors with rubber tires that compacted the ground. So it really doesn't do anything to really help with the water quality issue. Then we have these things called wet ponds or retention basins, which are great at attracting geese. Which apparently I just learned today that 4 geese is equal to 1 septic system, which is something I learned. So we all can learn something today, so it's good. So the idea with this is stormwater comes in and gets stored on top of that existing water. So there's always 3 or 4 feet of water in there. And then this is what it's supposed to look like when it works, right? What winds up happening is this captures the pollution, so the algae is growing in these retention basins instead of growing in your lake or in your stream. I get called down to Smithville in South Jersey every year by the seniors who live there. They asked me to look at their pond. Apparently he bought a house on the Mermaid Pond and it's green like this, and he's really mad about that because he paid extra for his house. And I get down there and open up the plans and I say, well, you may call it the Mermaid Pond, but Kay calls it retention basin number 7. And it was designed to capture all the pollution from your development so we don't pollute the wetlands in the ocean that's adjacent to your facility. So that's what it's designed to kind of do. We have these underground systems too, where we can put these pipes underground, hold water underground, and then let it out slowly and let it infiltrate. They're big enough, you can put bodies in there too if you wanted to, but hopefully you don't need to do that. But it is Jersey, so maybe, I don't know. So these bioretention systems or rain gardens. So what's interesting here is, you know, bioretention system is the technical name. Like I said, I'm a civil engineer, and you know, I joined Rutgers 16 years ago, and I'd gotten some funding, and I went into a community like this, and I said, listen, I've got money, and I want to put a bioretention system in everybody's front yard. And the people say, you're not putting a bio anything in my front yard, that sounds hazardous, you know. So they came up with this name called rain garden. I came back about 4 weeks later and I said, listen, I got other money. We can give everybody a free rain garden. You get the Easy Lily rain garden, the Easy Wildflower rain garden, and the idea is you put a garden in your front yard, and take the stormwater from the road, it'll slowly percolate into the ground, it'll clean the water, and you'll have a beautiful garden for your house. And people say, wow, this is great. Rutgers is going to give us free gardens. Well, it's the same thing as a bioretention system. It's just a different name. So a lot of times we're trying to sell things and tell people about things, and they just don't understand it. Like cyanobacteria, right? It's kind of hard to understand what that term means, right? So we kind of change it up so people can except a little bit easier. So this is porous asphalt. The idea is that's a very coarse material and water will go right through it. There's a stone layer underneath where stone can sit in, and as water is passing through the asphalt, that stone layer is getting filtered. Just like it would go through a regular filter, and it gets cleaner and cleaner, and then it infiltrates into the ground. So you can see the cartway where cars drive is regular asphalt, and the other asphalt where the parking spots are is porous. Okay, so the idea is that water goes right through. It's just a coarse material. So Steve started talking about addressing the problems, and I happened to see his slides earlier today, and I laughed because I realized all the biology in it was going to kill people, but you know. But he talked about two things, like the regional scale and the lake community scale, right? So, in the residential scale. So I kind of broke this down a little bit. The regional scale is interesting because municipalities actually have to work together. And this is New Jersey with 565 municipalities. We used to have 56, but now we lost one. I don't know where it went. Municipalities would actually have to work together. So Lake Hopatcong has 4 municipalities. They might have to work together to come up with solutions. We start thinking about lake community scales where residents and businesses within a community or neighborhood are working together. And then we talk about individual lots, what people can do. So these become very important. So Steve talked about plans too. In New Jersey, we started doing regional stormwater management plans like 16 years ago. The state realized they didn't have the capacity to review those plans, so they asked us to turn them into watershed restoration and protection plans. And the idea was that, you know, that would give us an idea of where the sources of pollution are, how to control those sources, how to prioritize those. So we started doing a lot of these plans at Rutgers. I know Princeton Hydro started doing a lot of them. These plans would take 2 to 4 years to do, and it would take $200,000 to $400,000 to complete. So it was a long process, and we used to have these meetings where we bring people like this into a room and talk about the plan every other month, and that lasts for about 24 months before people get bored out of their mind and stop coming to the meetings. But you know, so that's kind of the process. And then you have to have this intergovernmental cooperation. So when the solutions come out, everybody has to agree that they're the right solutions. You have to have land available to implement the solutions, right? So in New Jersey, we're a lot of development already. So we really don't have a lot of land available, right? So the next piece is getting the water or the stormwater to that land so we can treat it, and then committing to maintain the facility, and then finding somebody to pay for it all. And Jim's going to talk about that later. He's got a big bag of money he'll hand out in a bit. So this is a plan that was done actually by Princeton Hydro, Deal Lakes. This is one of the watershed restoration plans. So we've actually been invited into Deal Lake to do some work too, and we came up with a green infrastructure feasibility study. So these plans take us 2 to 4 months to do, and the idea is we actually identify projects that can go in immediately. So we come up with a list of projects that can go in different watersheds within the town. We've actually started grouping these together. So this has many towns involved in this plan. Usually we do this for individual towns or groups of towns. We identify projects. So here we've identified stormwater planters or bioretention systems. We actually have a table where you do some calculations, and here we figured out that this site, you know, has, when it rains on an annual basis, it releases about 0.6 pounds of phosphorus a year, which I found out today, that's about 600 pounds of algae. So if I treat this site, I can reduce my algae in my lake by 600 pounds, right? So that's pretty good, right? It's a lot of algae, right? So we have a site like this, and we show this, then we hire a landscape architect, and they render it up, and then we convince the town to let us build it, right? So this is stormwater management, okay? So once we have these projects in the ground, then we start thinking about how do we do this on the neighborhood scale. The neighborhoods need a common goal. Common goal usually is we want to protect our pond or our lake. We always have a local champion. That's that crazy person who tries to rally everybody together and make sure things happen. You know, they're totally dedicated to the issue. If you don't have a local champion, we actually have a green infrastructure champion program where we train you to be that local champion, and we instill that amount of craziness in you so you know exactly how to do it. And then we provide some technical expertise to those people. Here's an example that we did in Hillsborough. This group had a lake that was a lot of algae in it, a little pond. So the town had a couple meetings, we made some presentations. We offered free rain garden designs to the community around the lake, and then we helped install the rain gardens, and it really kind of took off. So this is a lake. You can see the pond on top, and you see how green it is. That's not Photoshop. That's what it really looks like on Google Earth. And then you can see these are the 5 houses that we actually put rain gardens in. As a result of this, what wound up happening is we wound up putting a rain garden here alongside the road to take road runoff, and then we started replanting this whole buffer along the pond to reduce the amount of geese that were there. So these 5 rain gardens led into a bigger project, so it became really nice. We do residential programs too because we believe that people should take personal responsibility for what's going on. So we do have a rain garden rebate program, that neighborhood rain garden program I just talked about. We also do rain barrel programs at Rutgers. So 3 minutes, wow, Steve must use all my time. Anyway, so the rain garden rebate program is really interesting. We're doing this all over New Jersey now. I give a 45-minute educational session. People leave laughing, their bellies hurt, and they go home, they want to build a rain garden, they get excited about it. So a week later, they come back, they sign up for a 30-minute block, they meet with an engineer and a landscape architect, and we work with them to specifically design a rain garden for their property. At the end of the night, they leave with a plan. If they build a rain garden, we give them a Visa gift card for $3 per square foot. So if they build a 150 square foot rain garden, they get a Visa gift card for $450. Now, obviously, you can only use that at the Rutgers bookstore, but no, just kidding. And then we actually help people build these gardens too. We have a lot of seniors who want to do this work. It's kind of hard digging. So we'll send our students out to help out. So this is an example of design on the left and the garden on the right. So you can see some of these projects that were built by homeowners. You can see the designs. And they get to take this design home with them the night of the session and go build it. This is some of my students who helped dig out the garden for this woman in the middle in the black. She had a bad back, so we dug it out for her. The students learned which end of the shovel goes in the ground. They learned what a blister is. So it builds character, really nice. And it only cost her some lemonade and pizza, so it was really good. And then we do take driveway runoff, different things like this. And you can see some of the designs that we do. And here, we designed this to take one downspout, and this guy went crazy, started putting all his downspouts into one rain garden and made it much bigger than we originally designed. So you can see these are some of the things that we wound up doing. And we can do this with communities and get people to take responsibility, and every homeowner can have a little part of saving the lake. And you can see some of the things here. We actually have rain barrels where we hook the overflow rain barrel into the rain garden. So it's another piece of that, And this is kind of one that was done by our landscape architect, and you can see, you wouldn't even really tell that was a rain garden. It's just like a nice landscape feature. And here's him contemplating the next rain garden he's going to build. The picture on the right is the before picture, this is the after picture, and that's kind of what we wound up doing. Okay, so this is it. I have time left? Can I do this last slide? You sure? Okay, so we can help you as a community, Rutgers can help you as a community develop these watershed restoration and protection plans. What's nice about those plans is once you develop those, and they get accepted by DEP, they're eligible for funding from DEP, from the 319H grant program. So there's a program DEP has, and they'll give you funding to implement the actions that have been identified in the plan. I'm sure some of that money has gone up here to Lake Mohawk. Green infrastructure feasibility studies, which is a lot of fun. We identify real projects that go in the ground, a lot of schools, a lot of churches, a lot of places like that. These neighborhood rain garden programs are great, trying to get a community really excited about it, and that tends to expand beyond that community to other communities. So the rebate program is great if we can find funding to give out the rebates. A lot of times people will just come in for the design session because they have a drainage issue or they really want a rain garden. It's very hard to get a professional engineer and a certified landscape architect to come out and spend a half hour with you at your house. So it's a great opportunity to come in and bring pictures of your house and get some stuff designed for you. We have this Green Infrastructure Champion program. We had 9 classes that we had over the course of a few months. I see some of the champions are in here now, and it's a really good program. It teaches people about green infrastructure so they can get up in front of their township committee or in front of a group and talk about it intelligently and actually take some action and move forward. And then we also assist with some grant writing, mostly so we can get funding for ourselves. We'll write you a grant, we'll write ourselves into it, as a way to go. I'm paid for by the State University of New Jersey. The New Jersey Agriculture Experiment Station funds my salary. But we run on grants. I got 8 full-time staff. I had 10 full-time students over the summer. We just got a really great grant from the Highlands Council to do some of these plans. So we're trying to get more funding to keep doing this work, but that's what our program's all about. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Obepta.